On the morning of the 3rd of June, 1998, a German family was enjoying their train journey while sipping coffee. The high-speed train was traveling from Munich to Hamburg. It was 10:30 a.m., and so far, everything seemed perfectly normal. But exactly 12 minutes later, that family was terrified when a piece of steel suddenly burst through the floor beneath their feet, ripping its way up directly between their seats. What they didn't know was that this was only the beginning of the deadliest disaster in the history of Germany's high-speed railway system. Welcome back once again to Nova Reports. In the late 1950 seconds, Japan stunned the world when its Shinkansen, better known as the bullet train, became the world's first true high-speed railway. It transformed transportation across the country by connecting cities like never before, making travel so fast that journeys once measured in hours were suddenly reduced dramatically. Inspired by Japan's success, France and Italy built their own high-speed rail networks. Germany wasn't about to be left behind either. Germany launched its own high-speed rail project, called the ICE, short for Intercity Express. When these trains entered service during the 1980 seconds, many believed they represented the future of rail transportation. Every feature passengers could imagine had been carefully considered: an aerodynamic design, advanced computerized systems, an exceptionally comfortable travel experience. Everything appeared to be perfect, but every perfect system hides a weakness somewhere, and the weakness of the ICE trains was their wheels. The first-generation ICE trains were originally equipped with monoblock wheels. In other words, each wheel was forged from a single solid piece of steel, making it strong, inexpensive, and highly reliable. However, engineers eventually noticed a problem with this monoblock design. After several years, passengers began complaining that the train developed a strange vibration whenever it reached high speeds. Inside the buffet car, where food was served, glasses, spoons, and forks would rattle constantly because of the vibrations. These vibrations and the resulting noise made the journey increasingly uncomfortable. Eventually, engineers investigated the issue and discovered that the problem originated inside the wheels themselves. Although monoblock wheels were manufactured from a single piece of steel and were evenly balanced on all sides, even the slightest change in weight could create a serious problem. If as little as 5 grams of additional weight accumulated on one side of a wheel, the difference would generate noticeable vibrations once the wheel reached high RPMs. And that was exactly what was happening. At high speeds, continuous friction had worn certain sections of the monoblock wheels unevenly, throwing the wheels out of balance. At lower speeds, the imbalance was barely noticeable. But once those unbalanced wheels were spinning at nearly 250 kilometers per hour, vibrations spread throughout the entire train. This is actually a common issue with almost any type of wheel. Even on a car, if 2 tire patches are placed on the same side of a tire, the added weight, even if it's only a few grams, can create vibrations at high speeds. That's why wheel balancing is performed. A technician simply adds an equal amount of weight to the opposite side, restoring perfect balance. But balancing the countless wheels on a high-speed train is far more difficult, especially when each wheel is manufactured as a single solid piece. Replacing them wasn't just complicated, it was also extremely expensive. So, German engineers came up with what seemed like a better solution for the ICE trains. They introduced resilient wheels. The defining feature of a resilient wheel was that it was no longer made from one solid piece. The inner ring and the outer steel tire were manufactured separately. Between them sat a thick rubber ring designed to absorb vibrations. This design was adopted primarily because whenever the outer steel tire became worn, engineers could replace only that section instead of replacing the entire wheel. At the time, this same wheel design was already being used successfully on Germany's tram systems. The problem, however, was that trams operated at only about 30 kilometers, per hour, while ice trains routinely traveled at 250 kilometers per hour. That difference would eventually prove to be critically important, but at the time, almost no one paid attention to it. Company executives approved the resilient wheel design without conducting adequate testing. Then, in 1992, these new wheels were installed across the entire fleet of high-speed ice trains. For several years, everything appeared to work perfectly. Then, in 1997, the Hanover Tram Company, Ustera, made a shocking discovery. Engineers found cracks developing in the wheels of their trams. They replaced the damaged wheel components and, as a precaution, informed Deutsche Bahn, Germany's national railway company. However, because there had been no complaints about vibrations in the ice trains at the time, Deutsche Bahn dismissed the warning. Exactly 1 year later, on the 3rd of June 1998, everything changed. At 10:30 a.m., Ice Train 884 departed Hanover Station for Hamburg. The train consisted of 14 cars, 2 power cars, 12 passenger coaches. On board were 287 passengers and 8 crew members. As the train left Hanover, everything appeared completely normal. In coach number 1, George Dittman was traveling with his family. Their journey was pleasant and uneventful, but a few minutes later, something suddenly slammed into the floor beneath them. An instant later, a sharp piece of steel tore straight through the floor between 2 seats. That razor-sharp piece of metal was actually part of one of the train's wheels. The moment George saw it, he and his family were thrown into complete panic. It felt as though the ground had disappeared beneath their feet. Had that steel fragment entered just a few inches to the left or right, his family almost certainly would not have survived. George immediately sent his wife and children into the neighboring compartment. He then rushed off to find the conductor. At that moment, the conductor was in the 3rd coach. George quickly explained everything that had happened. However, under company policy, the conductor was not allowed to stop the train until he had personally inspected the problem. So, the 2 men immediately headed toward the 1st coach together. Meanwhile, the train was still racing forward at nearly 200 kilometers per hour, and, little by little, the vibrations were becoming stronger. By the time George and the conductor reached the front coach, the train had already traveled another 3 kilometers. Worse still, it was now approaching one of the most dangerous sections of railway track, a track switch, where the rails split into different directions. The broken section of the wheel was still lodged beneath the train, dragging along the rails as the train sped forward. The moment the train passed over the first switch point, the broken steel tire finally dropped from beneath the train and slammed directly into the track's switching mechanism. And in that instant, something catastrophic happened. The track switch changed position. Now the 1st and 2nd coaches continued onto one track, while the 3rd coach was diverted onto another. In other words, the front of the train and the rear of the train were suddenly being pulled in 2 different directions. The entire body of the train twisted violently. Coach number 3 was thrown directly into the concrete support pillar of a bridge. The impact was devastating. The collision shattered nearly half of the bridge. Coach number 4 narrowly avoided being crushed beneath the collapsing bridge itself, but instead slammed into the railway embankment. 3 railway workers standing nearby were killed instantly. Coaches number 5 and number 6 were trapped beneath nearly 300 tons of collapsing concrete as the bridge came crashing down on top of them. After the disaster, investigators discovered that the height of those 2 coaches had been compressed to just 6 inches. Yes, only 6 inches. The remaining coaches behind them, numbers 7, 8, 9, and 10, continued hurtling forward at full speed. One after another, they slammed into each other and folded together like sheets of paper. Remarkably, only the first 2 coaches, the ones carrying George and his family, remained largely intact. Meanwhile, The front power car continued traveling for another 3 kilometers before finally coming to a stop. When coach number 3 struck the bridge, the engineer and train driver certainly felt a violent jolt, but they had absolutely no idea what kind of catastrophe was unfolding behind them. The disaster occurred near a small German town called Reshaped. When local residents heard the enormous explosion, they rushed toward the scene. What they found was something they would likely never forget for the rest of their lives: dyed train coaches, twisted steel, fire, and the desperate screams of survivors. Some passengers were trapped beneath the collapsed bridge. Others remained pinned inside their seats. To make matters even worse, the train's pressure-resistant windows were so strong that breaking them was almost impossible. Rescue crews were forced to bring in heavy machinery. Even then, reaching many of the trapped passengers took several hours. More than 1,000 rescue workers eventually responded to the disaster. Ambulances, firefighters, military doctors. Everyone worked together in an enormous rescue operation. By sheer coincidence, a medical conference was being held nearby. Around 40 doctors immediately rushed from the conference directly to the crash site to help treat the injured. But by then, much of the damage had already been done. In total, 101 people lost their lives. Another 88 people suffered severe injuries. Nearly 100 more escaped with minor injuries. Those traveling in the first 2 coaches were incredibly fortunate. Most of them survived. Germany's high-speed ice trains had once been regarded as some of the safest trains in the world. The Reshaped disaster completely destroyed that reputation. The tragedy shocked not only Germany, but also countries such as France, Italy, and Japan, all of which operated high-speed rail networks of their own. When investigators began analyzing the crash site, their initial theory was that perhaps a vehicle had somehow entered the tracks. But after discovering the piece of wheel that had pierced the floor of the first coach, everything started to become clear. Maintenance records revealed that the very same wheel had previously been reported for developing flat spots. Not once, not twice, but 8 separate times. Even so, it had never been replaced. The railway also possessed machines capable of detecting wheel cracks, yet inspections were still performed visually, using nothing more than flashlights. The company insisted those detection machines produced too many false alarms. Back in 1992, a German research organization called Fraunhofer had already warned that resilient wheels could be dangerous when used on high-speed trains. Then, in 1997, the Hanover Tram Company issued another warning after discovering cracks in its own resilient wheels. Both warnings were ignored. Engineers later explained that each of these wheel tires rotated nearly 500,000 times every single day, all while operating at extremely high speeds. During every rotation, the steel tire compressed ever so slightly before expanding again. Over time, that continuous cycle created fatigue cracks inside the steel. Those cracks continued growing day after day. But because the rubber layer between the wheel components absorbed the vibrations, there was no obvious warning that anything was wrong. No one realized the wheels themselves were slowly cracking apart. Then, on the 3rd of June, 1998, a single broken wheel triggered one of the deadliest railway disasters in modern history. Today, the Reshaped disaster is widely regarded as the world's worst high-speed train accident. In the aftermath of the tragedy, every high-speed train equipped with resilient wheels was converted back to the monoblock wheel design. Bridges located near railway switch points were also redesigned or relocated to prevent a similar catastrophe from ever happening again. Following the accident, Germany conducted a complete reevaluation of its entire railway system. The pressure-resistant windows were replaced so that, in future emergencies, rescuers could break them quickly and safely to reach trapped passengers. Even today, the Reshaped disaster is taught as a case study in railway training centers across Germany. Although monoblock wheels require more maintenance and are more expensive to service, their one-piece construction makes them far less likely to fail at high speeds. And perhaps most importantly, vibrations are now recognized as a warning sign, a signal that a wheel requires balancing or immediate inspection before disaster strikes. We hope you enjoyed another documentary from Nova Reports. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like and share it. Thank you so much for your continued support and for all of your wonderful comments. We'll see you again in the next amazing video.